You went silent, you pulled away, you gave him space, and more importantly, you gave yourself peace. That silence wasn't just an absence of words, it was the presence of strength. But now it's time to make the move he won't expect. Not one rooted in revenge, but in transformation. You went silent. You chose no contact. And while some might see that as weakness, it was the beginning of your greatest strength. The silence wasn't just the absence of communication, it was the start of your transformation. Now that the dust has settled, it's time to make the move he won't expect. Not with a message, not with a phone call, and definitely not with begging. The move is this: reintroduce yourself, but without saying a single word. He thought no contact would be temporary. He believed you'd reach out eventually, maybe even apologize for leaving. He expected a tearful return, a desperate message, a sign that you still cared. What he didn't expect, what he never saw coming, is that you come back to yourself. You didn't just disappear from his life, you reappeared in your own, stronger, clearer, more grounded. And that quiet return to yourself is the most powerful statement you can ever make. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to post cryptic quotes or try to make him jealous online. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. All you need to do is live fully, confidently, authentically. Show up in your world with energy, focus, and purpose. When you walk into a room, let your energy speak for you. Let your peace show in your posture. Let your self-respect shine in your eyes. This is the new you, the you that no longer waits around for someone who couldn't appreciate your presence the first time. Because here's what he doesn't expect: that you've stopped waiting for closure, that you've stopped replaying old conversations, stopped wondering what you could have done differently, that you've stopped needing answers from someone who never gave you the respect you deserved. He thought he had time. He thought you'd always be emotionally available somewhere in the background, holding space for him. But now you're no longer someone he can reach out to and find waiting. You're outgrowing the space he thought he'd always occupy. You're glowing differently now, not because of someone else, but because of what you've done for yourself. Maybe you changed your routine. Maybe you started healing, going to the gym, eating better, meditating, journaling, facing the parts of yourself that hurt the most. You're rebuilding your identity around what you deserve, not what you tolerated. You're no longer hoping he sees your worth. You've finally seen it yourself, and that changes everything. He won't expect the quiet confidence. He won't expect the way you smile now. Not forced, not fake, but free. He won't expect the way your silence has become your strength, your distance a declaration of self-worth. He won't expect that the woman who once answered every call now screens them, that the woman who once lowered her standards for love has raised them for herself, that the woman who used to chase has now chosen peace over chaos. You don't need to prove your evolution. You are the proof. In the way you protect your energy now, in the way you no longer settle for bare minimum, in the way you hold eye contact and walk with purpose. There's no need to be loud about your comeback. The most powerful returns are always the quietest ones, the ones that come with no announcement, no warning, just presence, just impact. Let him see it without explanation. Let him watch from the distance he created. Let him wonder who you've become now that you've stopped trying to be the version of yourself he once needed. And when he realizes he can't recognize you anymore, not because you've changed into someone else, but because you've returned to your truth, that's when the power shift happens. He won't expect that you've outgrown the fantasy, that you've stopped replaying the potential and finally started seeing the reality. He won't expect that the version of you he once knew has evolved into someone who doesn't just look stronger, but is stronger, not bitter, not broken, just better. This move, this quiet reintroduction of yourself into the world, not for him, but for you, is what makes him realize he lost something valuable. Not because you told him, but because your energy, your light, your confidence tells the story he thought he'd never have to read. And there's no caption, no status update, no DM that can capture what that realization feels like. So don't say a word, don't reach out, Don't explain. Just rise, just glow, just live so fully, so unapologetically that your silence echoes louder than anything you could have said. Because this is the move he'll never see coming. He thinks he still has access to you, maybe not physically, maybe not even through your phone, but in his mind, he still believes that somewhere deep down, you're emotionally available to him, that if he reached out, you'd respond, that if he sent the right message, called at the right time, you'd pick up. He assumes he still lives rent-free in your mind. What he doesn't expect is the shift that's already happened. The move that's been silently unfolding while he wasn't looking. You're no longer available in the ways you once were. And that right there is what disrupts everything. There was a time when you would drop everything for him. A time when your day could be turned upside down by a single text. A time when his silence made you spiral and his presence made you forget your worth. But that version of you no longer exists. You've taken your energy back piece by piece. You've stopped making room for someone who only showed up when it was convenient for him. And now your life isn't waiting around for his return. It's moving forward with or without him. The most unexpected move after no contact isn't reaching out. It's doing the opposite. It's becoming unavailable in all the right ways. Unavailable to drama. Unavailable to confusion, unavailable to the emotional roller coaster he used to bring. Because now, your time is valuable, your peace is sacred. Your space is no longer open to people who only want to benefit from the best parts of you without offering anything real in return. He won't expect that when he tries to reconnect, you're not there anymore. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. He won't expect that the doors he used to walk through so easily are now locked. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. He'll be confused when the person who used to respond in seconds suddenly doesn't answer at all. When the emotional lifeline he once took for granted has been cut off, quietly, completely. And maybe he'll test you. Maybe he'll send a message just to see if the old version of you is still there, the one who waited, who hoped, who wanted so badly to feel chosen. But you won't respond the same way. Not because you're trying to play games, but because you're not available for them anymore. You're not interested in being an option, in being kept on standby, in giving your all to someone who gave you just enough to keep you close, but never enough to keep you safe. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about pretending to move on. This is about actually doing it, about realizing that emotional availability is a gift, not something to be handed out to people who haven't earned it. You're no longer accessible because you've learned how to protect your heart. And in doing so, you become a version of yourself that doesn't tolerate inconsistency or half effort. You're too full now, full of self-worth, full of clarity, full of peace. He won't expect that while he was busy figuring himself out, you were building something stronger. A life. A mindset, a routine that no longer centers around him. And when he tries to reach you, whether it's with a casual hey or a late night I miss you, he'll realize that his words don't hold the same weight anymore. They don't land the same way because you've stopped giving them power. You're unavailable not because you're trying to prove a point, but because you've finally understood yours. You've realized that people only rise to the level you allow. That the more you make yourself accessible to someone who doesn't value you, the more you teach them it's okay to come and go as they please. And you're done with that lesson. You've graduated from it. It's not about ignoring him out of anger. It's about honoring yourself out of love. You're choosing yourself day after day. And that choice has created distance. The kind of distance he wasn't prepared for. The kind that isn't just physical, but emotional. A distance that says, I no longer need your presence to validate my worth. That's the move he never expected. Because people expect you to be bitter. They expect you to lash out or cling on. What they never expect is your calm detachment, your quiet exit, your ability to walk away without slamming the door. And when he realizes that he can no longer reach the version of you that once loved him so deeply, that realization will hit harder than any words ever could. You are unavailable now in the most beautiful, liberating way. Not closed off, not numb, but selective, intentional, protective of your heart and energy. You've stopped romanticizing potential and started respecting reality. And in that reality, you no longer make yourself emotionally available to someone who didn't know how to treat you when they had the chance. So when he wonders why you're different, when he senses the shift but can't quite explain it, that's the move. That's the power. You didn't need to announce it. You didn't need to explain it. You simply became unavailable in all the right ways. And that, more than anything, is what he never saw coming. He expected you to come back to him. What he didn't expect, what he never prepared for, was that during the silence, you went deeper into yourself. That instead of chasing closure, you started chasing peace. Instead of obsessing over his absence, you started reconnecting with your presence. This was the move he never imagined. You stopped trying to fix things with him and started fixing the parts of yourself that had been quietly breaking long before he left. That decision, that inward shift, is what makes all the difference. Because now your healing is no longer about him, it's about you. It started slowly, maybe even painfully. The silence wasn't easy. It echoed with the questions you never got answers to. It brought up all the insecurities, all the pain, all the stories you used to tell yourself about not being good enough. But instead of running from that discomfort, you sat with it. You allowed yourself to feel the weight of everything you'd suppressed. The tears, the loneliness, the anger, the shame. And in doing so, you created space, not for him to come back, but for you to return to yourself. You started asking better questions. Not why did he do this to me, but why did I accept it for so long? Not what was wrong with me, but what did I need that I was hoping he would give? Those questions led you somewhere deeper, to the real you, the you beneath the pain, beneath the patterns, beneath the need for validation. And that version of you had been waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard, waiting to be chosen, not by him, but by you. You began to connect with yourself in ways you hadn't in years. Maybe you picked up a journal and started writing. Maybe you meditated for the first time and found a moment of stillness in the chaos. Maybe you stood in front of the mirror, looked into your own eyes, and whispered the words you had longed to hear from someone else. I'm here. I love you. I've got you. And something shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. It was a homecoming. The more you connected with yourself, the less you needed from him. Not because the pain vanished overnight, but because your roots were growing deeper than the wound. You were learning how to sit with yourself without reaching for distractions. Learning how to hold your own hand when things felt uncertain. Learning how to create joy in solitude, confidence in silence, strength in your own reflection. You started taking your power back in the smallest of ways. Waking up and choosing routines that made you feel alive. Saying no to things that drained you. Saying yes to things that nourished you. You began to rebuild your identity around your values, your vision, your voice. And with every step, you felt more solid, more grounded, more whole. And while he may have expected you to stay broken, to remain emotionally entangled, what he never expected was your emotional evolution. He didn't think you'd grow without his apology. He didn't think you'd move on without closure. He didn't think you'd find peace in the very space he thought would destroy you. But here you are, not just surviving, but thriving. Not just letting go of him, but finally holding on to yourself. The more you poured into yourself, the more you realized how much you had abandoned yourself for the sake of love. How many times you shrank to keep the peace. How often you silenced your needs to feel safe. But not anymore. You're no longer available for a version of love that asks you to lose yourself. You now understand that true love, real, lasting, nourishing love, starts within. And this journey you've taken back to yourself, that's the deepest form of healing. Because now you're not looking for someone to fix you. You're not waiting for anyone to complete you. You've become whole on your own. And that wholeness has redefined what you'll accept. You now understand your worth, not as something someone else gives you, but something you've owned all along. So if he does come back, he'll find someone he no longer recognizes. Not because you've changed into someone new, but because you've become who you always were. Before the heartbreak, before the confusion, before the silence. You've reconnected with your inner power, your intuition, your peace. You've gone inward and you've returned with clarity. And the most powerful part, you didn't do it to prove anything. Not to him, not to anyone. You did it because you were tired of living disconnected from your own soul. Because you finally realized that the love you were seeking out there was always meant to begin in here. He won't expect that. He won't understand it. But that's okay. He doesn't have to. Because now you do. And that's all that matters. He thinks the silence was your way of waiting. That maybe you're still hoping, still watching, still emotionally tied to the story he left unfinished. What he doesn't expect is that the silence wasn't about him at all. It was about you finally giving yourself the space to evolve beyond the version of you that needed him. And now the most unexpected move you can make isn't reaching back with words or gestures. It's rebuilding your life so beautifully, so boldly, that he no longer recognizes the woman he once thought would never leave. You didn't just walk away, you rose. He won't expect that your energy has shifted, that the softness he once took for granted has turned into self-respect, that your compassion now comes with boundaries. He believed he could come and go, that the door would always be half open, that you'd always have one foot in the past. But now, you're not just moving forward, you're living forward. You're no longer frozen in the timeline where he mattered most. Your story's expanded and he's no longer the center of it. This is the move he never saw coming. Not revenge, not bitterness, not cold silence meant to punish, but joy. Real, honest, radiant joy. The kind of joy that can't be faked or forced. The kind that grows when you start choosing yourself consistently, without hesitation. He doesn't expect you to be laughing again, glowing again, feeling alive in ways you hadn't in his presence. You see, he thought he broke something in you. He thought his withdrawal would leave you incomplete, like a missing piece you'd forever search for. But instead of shattering, you rebuilt. He thought you'd always associate your worth with how he treated you. But now you've redefined your worth from the inside out. You no longer search for closure. You are the closure. You no longer need answers. You've become the answer. He won't expect to see you out in the world, engaged, thriving, focused. Whether it's in how you show up to your work, how you invest in your friendships, how you care for your body and your mind, you've created a version of yourself that no longer seeks permission to shine. You've stopped shrinking. You're no longer bending yourself into a shape that fits someone else's comfort. You've stepped fully into your own space, your own power, your own rhythm. And the irony is, now that you're no longer looking over your shoulder, now that you're no longer wondering if he's watching, that's when he notices. That's when the silence starts to get loud for him, when your absence becomes more visible than your presence ever was. Because he doesn't have access to the new you. He doesn't get to experience this evolution. He lost that privilege when he treated your heart like it was replaceable. And it's not about pretending to be okay. It's not about posting a curated highlight reel to spark jealousy. That kind of validation is short-lived. And you've outgrown the need for surface-level attention. No, what you're doing is deeper. You're building a life you're proud of, a life that reflects your values, a life that feels peaceful when you wake up in the morning and aligned when you go to sleep at night. He doesn't expect you to stop checking his page. He doesn't expect you to stop thinking about him. He doesn't expect you to detach without anger or resentment, just with clarity, with love for yourself that now outweighs the love you once had for him. That's what shocks him, because emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's healing. It's maturity. It's the quiet realization that not everyone you care about is meant to stay. The move he never expects is not to be erased out of spite, but to fade into irrelevance naturally as you continue to water the garden of your own life. He becomes a background character in a story that's no longer about who hurt you, but about who you became after the pain. And not in a dramatic way, not in some grand transformation to prove anything, but in the quiet, consistent choices you make each day. The choice to let go, to forgive without reconnecting, to release without needing closure, to rise without needing revenge. Because now your energy isn't chasing, fixing, proving, or waiting. Your energy is investing, growing, loving, starting with yourself. And that shift, that's the earthquake he never saw coming. That's the silence he wasn't prepared for. Not the silence that waits, but the silence that moves on. He thought time would make you reach back, but time has only made you reach deeper into yourself. And what you found there is something no one else could ever give you. You found your power, your voice, your peace. And once you've touched that kind of self-love, you don't go back. Not for comfort, not for memories, not for nostalgia. You move forward, because forward is where you belong now. And he may come back one day. He may reach out when he feels your absence. He may try to reconnect, to test the waters, to see if the version of you that once needed him is still alive. But she's gone. And in her place stands a woman who no longer breaks at the sound of his name. A woman who chose herself when it mattered most. A woman whose silence said everything. And that is the move he never saw coming.